Hey there, this is Alex. Alex lives in the US, where he uses dollars every day to buy coffee, get gas, and pay rent. In the US, Alex's $1,000 is only enough to pay rent for a small house for 1 month. But now, Alex decides to visit Indonesia. With that same $1,000, he gets 16 million rupiah. Now, Alex can live in a luxury house and really enjoy life. But wait, why does the power of the same money change so much just by crossing a border? Why isn't $1 equal to £1 or 1 rupiah? And why do exchange rates change every second? In this video, we'll find out how money works and why currencies have different values. But before we understand exchange rates, we need to understand the nature of the paper money in your hand. For a long time, money was backed by gold. This was called the gold standard. Basically, under this system, a country's money was tied to a specific amount of gold. For example, the US dollar used to be fixed to gold. $20.67 was equal to 1 ounce of gold. This made exchange rates very stable because a country couldn't just print more money unless they had more gold in their vaults. But now, forget about gold. Because in 1971, US President Nixon cut the tie between the US dollar and gold. Since then, fiat money was born. Fiat money is not backed by gold. Instead, its value comes from two things: trust and power. This means the value of fiat money depends on whether people trust it and on the economy standing behind that money. So, what makes the value go up or down? It is the law of supply and demand. To put it simply, if a lot of people want a specific currency, they compete to get it. This pushes the price higher and higher. So, in this video, let's look at supply and demand and see exactly how it affects the value of money. Section 1. Interest rates. You've probably heard a lot about interest rates, right? Interest is just the price of borrowing money. For example, if you borrow $1,000 with a 5% interest rate for 1 year, you have to pay back the $1,000 plus $50 in interest. Central banks, like the Fed in the US, are the ones who set the interest rates for their country. So, how do interest rates affect the value of money? The rule is very simple. Just imagine the world is a giant marketplace, and investors are always looking for the place that pays the most money. For example, the US pays an interest rate of 5% a year. Meanwhile, Japan only pays 1% a year. So where will investors put their money? They will definitely invest in the US, right? The logic is, the higher the interest rate, the higher the profit. So, when a country has high interest rates, it attracts foreign investors. To invest there, these investors need to buy that country's currency. This increases the demand for that money, making it stronger. So, if interest rates in the US are higher than in Japan, investors will sell the Japanese yen and buy US dollars to invest. This makes the demand for the dollar skyrocket, so its price goes up. Meanwhile, since everyone is selling the yen, its value drops. On the other hand, if US interest rates go down, the profit is lower. Investors might sell their dollars to move their money somewhere else. This lowers the demand for the dollar, and its value goes down. That is why every time the Fed chair holds a press conference, the whole world holds its breath. He just needs to say, "Hello, everyone," and immediately, money from around the world flows back into the US like a flood. But this doesn't mean countries can just push interest rates as high as possible to attract investment. Why? Remember, interest is the price of borrowing money. So high interest rates mean borrowing becomes expensive for local people and businesses. If rates keep going up, fewer people can buy houses or start a business. This slows down the economy and people lose their jobs. So the central bank has to be careful. They raise or lower rates based on the country's situation. Section 2. Inflation. Inflation happens when money starts losing value. Basically, this means there is too much printed money, but not enough actual goods and services to buy. You can check out our video, Why We Don't Print More Money, to understand this better. So, when a country has high inflation, its currency value drops seriously. Why? Because nobody wants to keep money in their pocket if it's losing value every single day. They will try to sell it to buy other things, which makes the currency crash even faster. For example, In 2023, you have $5 and you can buy 2 cups of coffee. But because of high inflation, 2 years later, in 2025, that same $5 can only buy exactly 1 cup. The amount of money is the same, but the amount of coffee you get is cut in half. That is inflation. You buy less stuff with the same money. A great example is Argentina. At one point, their inflation hit over 100%. People had to run to the supermarket as soon as they got paid to stock up on goods. Why? Because if they waited until tomorrow, that money might only buy half as much stuff. When money loses value that fast, nobody wants to keep the Argentine peso. They sell it to buy US dollars. The result? The peso crashes completely. So just because $1 equals 16,000 rupiah, it doesn't mean the US is 16,000 times richer than Indonesia. It's actually decided by the inflation in those countries. Let's imagine the economy of both countries as a pizza. The US government decides to cut their pizza into 10 slices, so each slice is $1. Meanwhile, the Indonesian government decides to cut their pizza into 16,000 slices, so each slice is 1 rupiah. Whether you hold 10 slices from the US or 16,000 slices from Indonesia, you still get to eat exactly 1 pizza. The only difference is inflation, which decides how big or small the slices are. Section 3. Exports. When a country sells products to other countries, the buyers usually need to pay in that country's currency. This means more people need to buy that money, so the demand goes up. And, as we learned, higher demand makes the currency value go up. For example, when South Korea sells Samsung chips to the world, buyers have to use the Korean won to pay. This increases the demand for the won, making its price rise. That is why most countries try to export as much as possible. They want other countries to need their money, which makes their currency stronger. The best example is the US. The US convinced Saudi Arabia to sell oil only in US dollars. And since the whole world needs oil, the whole world must need US dollars. This turned the dollar into a global currency. Do you want to know more about the power of the US dollar? Let me know in the comments and I'll make another video explaining it. However, there is news that Saudi Arabia is considering accepting payments in other currencies from China, India, Brazil, and Russia. If this trend continues for 5 to 10 years, we might see the first multi-currency era in history. The dollar will still be strong, but it won't be the only king anymore. On the other hand, if a country doesn't sell anything, nobody needs their money, so it becomes weak. Section 4. Fixed value. Many countries find that constantly changing exchange rates are a huge headache. So, in this game, they choose a little cheat code called pegging. To make it easy to understand, imagine that country is like a tiny boat in the middle of the ocean. Instead of rowing alone against big waves, they tie a rope to a giant ship. When the big ship moves, the tiny boat moves too. When the big ship stops, the tiny boat stops too. A classic example is Hong Kong. They simply declared $1 US always equals 7.8 Hong Kong dollars. Period. What does this mean? It means if you bring $1 to Hong Kong, you automatically get 7.8 Hong Kong dollars. No need to check the exchange rate board, no need to worry. The good thing about this trick is stability, but the downside is Hong Kong needs a massive reserve of US dollars to intervene in the market at any time. But not everyone can do this. If you are weak but try to act strong, you will crash immediately. Besides that, there is another problem. You lose your freedom. Because if the big ship, the US, hits an iceberg, the tiny boat, Hong Kong, will sink too. They lose a lot of control over their own money. They are forced to depend on the health of the mother country. That is exactly why not every country chooses this option. Because nobody wants the money in their pocket to suddenly lose value just because of a problem in a country thousands of miles away, right? So, is a strong currency always good? Not necessarily. Just look at Japan. Sometimes they actually want the yen to be weak. Why? Because when the yen is cheap, a Toyota car sold in the US has a super competitive price compared to a Ford or a Tesla. A weak currency helps them sell more products. This means workers keep their jobs and big corporations make huge profits. On the other hand, if a currency is too strong, like the Swiss franc, their products become too expensive. It becomes very hard to sell them to the world. So, exchange rates are not just about economics. It is a political chess game. What exactly is this trick, and how does it affect your wallet? I will explain all of that in another video. Which currency do you think will be the king in the next 10 years? Let me know in the comments below. If this video made you smarter, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.